During different occasions I've used audience feedback to improve my products. I gathered audience feedback on my short film, my film poster and my magazine review. By improving my products, I found that they were more appealing and caught the audience eyes more. I found that I didn't use the same people for my audience feedback because I found that by using different people I'll get a broader range of feedback. So I've got different people's takes on it. I also found that those improvements were more effective. I also used a range of media students and non-media students, so this allowed me to have both professional opinions and society's opinions. So like people who maybe didn't have knowledge of media, which my target audience would be, because not a lot of people know and have knowledge on media as much as media students do. Because my short film is supposed to be informative, I decided to my target audience would be people who were in school, about my age, maybe a bit younger, so maybe like 15, 16, and both female and male. This made it very easy for me to find my for people to have feedback, to get feedback off of, because obviously I go to school with people who are the same age as me, so I could just ask them. I first received feedback on my initial ideas. This involved me presenting my 3 ideas to a small group of people who were my peers, and I presented it in a PowerPoint form and almost had like a bit of discussion with them, seeing what they found was most effective, and they shared some possible improvements with the idea that they liked the most. By this feedback I was able to decide on one specific idea which I would develop further. And like I said, they gave improvements. For example, there was one peer who has knowledge of autism because her brother's autistic, and gave me a statistic about how boys are more likely to be diagnosed than girls with autism. So that's when I decided that I would use a boy actor instead of a girl actor, which links quite well because I use that fact within my my short film. When I finished editing my first draft, I wanted to get other feedback which would be different to my teachers, because again they weren't my target audience, but obviously it's good to have people who are experienced. It's good to have their feedback. So I found people who fit into my primary target audience. I wanted to see what people would want to improve and change. The improvements that were suggested were to incorporate facts and like statistics into my short film, which would kind of like infer that informative side to it. Also to add some music to the film to make it a bit more interesting, and to add emphasised sounds that would be commonly found in like a household environment, which worked really effectively. Also to make it shorter, because I had so much footage that it wasn't actually going to fit into the 5 minutes. It ended up being something like 7 minutes long, so I had to shorten it down so it fit into those 5 minutes. All these improvements allowed me to improve my film. My first draft I didn't think was that great, so I did ask for people's opinion on it. So I again got a group of people and asked them what worked effectively and what didn't. Said to add certain things like a release date, maybe a reference to the director, their previous work, a review, and social media icons down at the bottom, because obviously due to my target audience being teenagers, it would appeal to them a lot more. I also used the same method for my magazine review, which I found was really effective because they came up with some really good ideas, like change the layout, which in the end was really effective and made a lot of difference. Also to add more drawings to emphasise that idea more, because obviously it's shared between both my poster and my magazine review, so that being emphasised would be really effective. And to add like typical aspects like a banner saying like film review and things like that, so I had to research that a bit more. I also used a questionnaire which allowed me to ask people directly and what they thought was maybe interesting and, you know, worked effectively with my film and my ancillaries, mostly my ancillaries, but I did ask questions about my film as well. So I started off, there was only 3 questions. First of all, I asked, what do you find most effective about the poster? It was a multiple choice, so it was, you had to choose between drawing, title and background, and 100% of people said that the drawing was most effective. The next question is, do you think that the black and white theme is effective? 60% of people said yes, and 40% of people said no. And the feedback I got from that was they thought, the people who said no thought that maybe colour would work quite well if I incorporated just little bits into it. But because my magazine review was the same, it was black and white, I really like the idea of just keeping it plain, because you see it in the actual film as well, because all he wears is basically black and white clothing, so I thought it was quite nice to keep that black and white kind of theme. And I asked about the overall look on both of my poster and magazine review, and asked whether it looks professional or not, and 80% of people said yes and 20% of people said no. The people who said no said the font looks a bit childish, and maybe it's not what they expected, but I kind of wanted to emphasise that childlike feeling, because obviously the main actor is a child, so I thought that did work effectively. But it was good to see what other people thought. My weaknesses and strengths on my feedback, like the technique that I used, I was restricted with people. I could only ask a certain amount of people once, so I had to be very careful on who I picked. Obviously, like, I could only branch so far, but if, like, say if I was to take it professionally, like if I was a proper producer, like producing this professionally, I would obviously have a wider range of people to choose from, because I could get whoever I wanted to, you know, do the questionnaire and things like that. What I could have done with the questionnaire is put it maybe online and got people who I don't particularly speak to in school, so people from other schools and other colleges and things like that. I could have asked them and got them to answer the questionnaire. That would have worked quite well. And I only decided to use 3 questions in the questionnaire, and they were either yes or no, or like choose your answer. So maybe I could have had like a comments box which they put down exactly what they thought in detail. Yeah, there was not really any open questions, but if I was to do that again, I would change that accordingly. But then again, I did find like my method quite effective, and a lot of other people did too with their feedback technique, because we all kind of use the same thing. Every time I did ask for some feedback, I did get some really good improvements that I could make, so it was good quality feedback. I also could ask obviously as many times as I would like. There was no limit to how many like times I could ask for feedback. I thought that the more feedback I got, the more effective the changes would be, and resulting in my end product being as effective as could be. Also, by obviously using people that fit into my target audience, the improvements were more suited for the purpose of the film.